John Della Russo. Please come up.
Good afternoon to all, and welcome to the sacred plot of land here in Revere, Massachusetts, the old Rumney Marsh burial ground, the final resting place to many. Today, however, we come together to pay respects to the forgotten, to acknowledge the slaves that for so long have rested without identification. They lived and died only with the dream of freedom, but not the hope. That hope would not come until a man of simple birth, but high ideals rose to that occasion. That man was President Abraham Lincoln. The instrument for this hope was the Emancipation Proclamation. This document freed all men in principle, but none in reality. It would take the totality of the blood spilled in the Civil War and the surrender at Appomattox to see that promise come alive. If we could, if only for an instance, have both a slave and Lincoln present together, two people very different in appearance, yet so similar in endeavors, then we may be able to understand truly why we gather here today and grasp the importance of what they have left behind.
As president, and long before the title was placed before my name, I've struggled with the condition of my fellow men in bondage. I cannot stand by and allow those people who have long struggled under the master's whip to further endure the pain of slavery, the human inequality that would place one race over another. This reality stains the thought of land of liberty and true democracy. To say it consciously, as I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. To express my idea of democracy, whatever differs from this to the extent of the difference, is not democracy. For this reason, until this end, that I wish to hear your voice, your pleas for help, that my heart knows, but my mind must comprehend.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. My words may be plain, but I will try to tell you what my heart knows of bondage and the dream of freedom. To begin, you must understand that I was not always a slave. My life began in freedom in my homeland of Africa. In my village, I knew the pleasure of working hard for my own profit and the ease of rest after that work. I first lost that freedom at the hands of my fellow countrymen. I arrived at a village that captured me and sold me to a slave trader. My life changed from that moment onwards. I was taken from my native soil, torn from my family and friends, and marched to the coast, where I was loaded onto a ship designed to hold a maximum of human cargo and sent on a journey that would take me to a strange new land and a much different life. A life of forced servitude, a life of slavery. It was a life where the labor of mind, body, and earth was not for my own sake, but for my owner. A life where I was no longer truly human, but considered property. Where my future, that of my family, my children, were in the hands of another. I could no more hope for what the next day would bring, never mind the future. I ask you, sir, why the horror of slavery took so long to move from just thought to the actions you now speak of.
It is difficult for us today to grasp the concept of slavery. For many people, hearing about the hardships that these human beings went through is overwhelming. But it is the uncomfortable issues that we must discuss and learn from. A well-used quote rings true. If we do not learn from history, we are destined to repeat it. We therefore must listen to history all around us, standing right in front of us, and resting beneath us.
That, sir, is a difficult question to answer. As early as the Continental Congress, the issue of slavery was a topic of heated debate, but at that time the political winds did not allow for the issue to be pressed. It was this inability to resolve with pen and ink that would bring in later years the resolution to be brought about with blood and death in the form of civil war. And my good man, much blood has been spilled in the early days of the Civil War, leading up to the year of 1862. It was only then that I felt victories of the Northern Army allowed the issue of preserving the Union and rejoining the country could be eclipsed by the higher calling of ending slavery. It is then that I penned the Emancipation Proclamation. Before those victories on the battlefield, my words would not have held the weight of possibility. The Emancipation Proclamation on the 22nd of September 1862 stated that on the first day of January 1863, all persons held as slaves shall be then, henceforth and forever, free. I must say that once the proclamation was made, the possibility of victory in the field took on a greater purpose and elevated our actions to a moral calling.
These are powerful words, Mr. President. But can words on paper give my people, my future generations, the freedom that it promises? I know that the cries of my people are very real, and the suffering you endure a physical reality. The actions to silence those cries, to end that suffering, must also be real.
My good fellow, no true words were so plainly stated. You're correct. The strong words of Emancipation Proclamation must be backed up with the action equal in strength and conviction. Many more lives will be lost in carrying out that conviction. Many more battles will have to be won to see the job done. I only hope that when the job is finished, that all the men can live lives where their labors produce fruit for their own table, when the hope that freedom supplies the birthright of all people.
Yes, it is true. The importance of the Emancipation Proclamation and the promise it held would take many more battles to see fulfillment. Battles that went on long after the end of the Civil War and the life of Lincoln. Long after the fife and drum, the cannon shot, and musket fire went silent. It would take the actions of Reconstruction up to the Civil Rights Movement and beyond to today to see the promise of Lincoln's words become reality. I would say that we must never stop remembering, rewriting, and recommitting ourselves to the idea of equality and righteousness penned by Lincoln. So, when gathering here to dedicate memorials for slaves who could, in many cases, only dream of the freedoms we possess, we must recommit ourselves to striving for equality and liberty. These slaves that are finally being properly acknowledged here today, I would hope can, with this action, be at peace. That they are honored and recognized as people, and free at last, slaves no more. To paraphrase, as Lincoln so eloquently stated at Gettysburg, our fathers brought forth to this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Thank you.